Imagine this. You're a security analyst. Yeah. Sitting at your desk, maybe late at night. Suddenly alerts just start screaming. Your company's main website, the digital face for millions of customers, isn't just slow, it's gone. Replaced by some crude, mocking image, customer data. Yeah, it's hemorrhaging out into the void. Or maybe think about a critical government portal that millions rely on. Just poof, evaporates. Brought to its knees. What happened? How could something seemingly so secure just crumble like that, so fast? Well, more often than you'd think, the answer starts with one single, often underestimated entry point: the web server. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the fascinating and, yeah, sometimes a bit unsettling world of hacking web servers. Our insights, they're pulled straight from the trenches, leaning heavily on the third edition of Hands-On Ethical Hacking and Network Defense. Now, our goal isn't to scare you. It's really to empower you. We want to arm you with the knowledge to not just understand these digital battlegrounds, but to actually become a guardian, someone ready to defend them. And look, if you're finding these insights valuable, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button, give us a like, maybe share this deep dive. That way, you'll never miss these kinds of insider tips that honestly could one day save your career and really help you become a guardian of the digital realm. You see, web servers, they're the public face of pretty much every organization now. Think about it. Your bank, your streaming service, your university portal, that online store you love, it all lives on web servers. And that makes them, well, absolute bullseyes for attackers. They're critical infrastructure. So understanding how they work and critically how they can be exploited isn't just some niche IT skill anymore. No, it's foundational. It's essential knowledge if you're serious about a career in MIS, CIS, or IT. It's the difference between watching the game and actually being on the field, you know?
That's exactly right. And that's the mindset, isn't it? To truly defend, you can't just build walls higher. You have to think like a hacker. You need to understand their tools, their tactics, the way they see the system to find those little cracks in the armor. We're not just listing attacks here. We're trying to prepare you for these really vital roles in network defense, to be those guardians who are proactive. And this is precisely the kind of foundational stuff we dive into in courses like BCIS 4342, Ethical Hacking and Network Defense at Tarleton State University's Dr. Sam Pack College of Business. It's about building that crucial dual perspective, thinking offense to build better defense.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Before we even talk about breaking in, we need to understand the building itself, right? What exactly is a web application? Fundamentally, what are its core parts?
Yeah, absolutely. The foundation is key. So basically, web pages fall into two main camps, static and dynamic. A static web page is, well, think of it like a printed flyer. It's already built. It doesn't change. It shows the exact same thing to everyone, every time. Like a simple About Us page on a small business website. Not much interaction there. But then you've got dynamic web pages. These are the interactive things we use constantly. Social media, online banking, e-commerce sites. They generate content on the fly, right? Tailoring it based on who you are or what you ask for. Now, this flexibility is great for users, but it means the server is constantly running code based on user input. And that's where the risk comes in.
Right, so dynamic means powerful, but also more complex. And complexity often hides vulnerabilities.
Exactly. And a primary way users interact dynamically is through web forms, your login boxes, search bars, contact forms, checkout details. When you type something in and hit submit, that data travels to the server. The server then has to process it, often using something called the Common Gateway Interface, or CGI. Think of CGI as like a standard way for the web server to talk to other background programs to get things done. It's the go-between, the danger. If an attacker can trick that form into accepting weird input it wasn't expecting, they might manipulate what the server does on the other end. It's like shouting a hidden command through the drive-through speaker.
Okay, makes sense. And what about the languages actually building these dynamic pages? How do they fit into the security puzzle?
Good question. So dynamic pages rely heavily on scripting languages. Things like VBScript, JavaScript, which runs a lot in your browser too, PHP, Cold Fusion, or CFML. These languages are like the engine under the hood, constantly putting the page together based on logic and data. The server executes this code. So if you understand how these languages should work, you can start spotting ways they can be misused or tricked. An ethical hacker needs to understand this code just as much as the developer, but they're asking, how can I break this rather than how can I build this? And finally, where's all the really important stuff stored? Usually not directly on the web server itself, right? Most sensitive data, customer info, products, financials, lives in a separate database server. To link the web application, that front end, to these databases, developers use technologies like Open Database Connectivity, ODBC. It's kind of a standard translator. Microsoft built on that with object linking and embedding database, OLE DB, faster, more direct. And then there's ActiveX Data Objects, ADO, which is another way web apps can talk directly to databases.
Okay, so ODBC, OLE, DB, ADO. They're like different phone lines between the web app and the database. How does that become a security issue?
It's all about controlling that conversation, you see. These connections are critical links. If an attacker can manipulate how the web page talks to the database, maybe by sneaking database commands into a web form field, they could potentially bypass security, steal data, change data, maybe even delete everything. This isn't just theoretical, this is how major breaches happen. Understanding these connections, these pathways, is fundamental. You gotta know the plumbing before you can find the leaks. And that's exactly the kind of foundational knowledge we cover in BCIS 4342.
Got it. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Once you understand the blueprint, you can spot the weak walls. So let's get into that. What happens when an attacker actually exploits these weaknesses? What are the real consequences, and how do they pull it off? This is where it gets, well, really interesting and a bit scary.
The impact of a web server compromise can be, frankly, devastating. We're talking about website defacement, which is bad for reputation, obviously. But much worse, you can have outright theft or destruction of sensitive company data. Think customer lists, credit cards, internal documents, stuff sold on the dark web or used for fraud. Attackers might hijack user accounts, or use your compromised site as a launchpad to attack other systems on your network, or even your own customers visiting the site. And in the worst case, they get root access, full control, not just of the web server, but potentially other connected systems. It's a total takeover. And here's a really crucial point: your standard network firewalls. They're often configured to allow web traffic HTTP and HTTPS because, well, that's the web server's job. So the firewall might not stop attacks aimed at the web application itself. This makes securing the application, that digital front door, absolutely critical. A strong perimeter doesn't help if the door itself is unlocked.
Wow. Okay. That really raises the stakes. So with all this risk, who are the good guys? Who's fighting back? And what kind of tools or guides do they give us? It sounds like a constant battle.
It is definitely an ongoing battle, but there are major forces for good. One of the most important is OWASP, the Open Web Application Security Project. It's a nonprofit foundation totally focused on improving software security. They're kind of like the global watchdog for web vulnerabilities. They're famous for their top 10 most critical web application security risks list. Basically, it's the attacker's favorite hit list, which means it should be your top defense checklist. Anyone building or securing web apps needs to know that list inside out. OWASP also creates awesome tools like WebGoat. It's a deliberately insecure web app you can install yourself to practice finding and exploiting vulnerabilities legally and safely. It's like a training ground.
A training ground. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into some of those specific vulnerabilities from the OWASP list, maybe. What's really fascinating is how simple user input can turn into a major weapon.
Absolutely. One of the biggest, most dangerous ones is input validation, specifically leading to SQL injection, or SQL. This is where an attacker puts SQL database commands into a place where the application expects normal user data, like a username field or a search box. Imagine a login form. Instead of typing JSmith, the attacker types something tricky like OR11. If the application isn't checking that input properly, it might just stick that string into its database query. And that little bit of code can trick the database into thinking the condition is always true, logging the attacker in without needing a password. Or worse, they could inject commands to delete data, modify records, you name it.
Whoa, so it's not just getting past a login. It could literally destroy data.
Precisely, yeah. Basic testing for this often involves just trying punctuation marks, like a single quote, maybe followed by SQL keywords like OR or select T, and then watching closely for errors. Because those detailed database error messages, they're gold mines for attackers. They can reveal table names, column names, the structure of the database, basically handing them a map. You want generic errors only. Then you have authentication and authorization testing. Two related but different things. Authentication is proving who you are, username, password, maybe multi-factor auth. Authorization is checking what you're allowed to do once you're logged in. So you need to test things like, are passwords stored securely? Are they hashed properly? Salted? Are they sent over encrypted connections? And for authorization, can a normal user somehow access admin pages just by guessing the URL? Can they perform actions they shouldn't be able to? It's about making sure the locks work and that people only have the keys they need. Error handling, as I mentioned with SQL, is huge. Developers need to be really careful about what information leaks out when something goes wrong. A detailed error revealing file paths, like var ww my app includes dbconnect.php or specific software versions, is incredibly helpful to an attacker. You want generic, uninformative errors for the end user. Keep the technical details logged securely on the server side only.
Right. Don't give them clues. Makes sense.
Exactly. Then there's cryptography testing. Are you using strong, up-to-date encryption? Or are you still using outdated algorithms that can be easily broken? Are your random number generators actually random or predictable? Are you using self-signed security certificates for important things instead of properly trusted ones? Little mistakes in crypto can undermine the whole system's security. And finally, a really interesting one, business logic testing. This is less about technical flaws in the code and more about flaws in the process the application expects you to follow. Think about an online store's checkout process. Can you manipulate things to get a discount you're not entitled to? Can you add an item, go to pay, then go back and change the quantity or price in a hidden field before finalizing? Can you skip steps? It's about thinking creatively, like a con artist, trying to break the intended workflow of the application itself.
Huh. So it's not always a complex hack. Sometimes it's just finding a loophole in the rules.
Exactly. And understanding all these types of flaws ties directly back to those course outcomes, like being able to recognize vulnerabilities. And it's not just finding them, it's about understanding security reporting best practices, documenting them clearly so they can actually get fixed. That's where techniques like SAST static application security testing, looking at the code, and DAST dynamic application security testing, interacting with the running app come into play. It's a whole process.
Okay, this is great. We understand the architecture, we understand the threats. But connecting this to the bigger picture, how do we actually defend proactively? What tools do the good guys, the ethical hackers, the pen testers use day to day? Let's move from theory to practice.
Right, the tools of the trade. And you might be surprised, some of the most fundamental tools are already in your hands. Browser developer tools. And Firefox, Chrome, Edge, hit F12. These tools aren't just for web designers. You can inspect HTML, see network requests, check cookies, even mess with JavaScript on the client side. It's fantastic for initial recon, figuring out how an application is built, what technologies it's using, and seeing what data is moving back and forth. You learn a ton just by watching.
So just using your browser smartly is step one. That's pretty accessible.
Absolutely. Then you step up to more specialized tools. A big one is Burp Suite. It's kind of the Swiss Army knife for web app testing, and yeah, it's included in Kali Linux. Burp acts as a proxy. It sits between your browser and the server, and it lets you intercept, inspect, and even modify all the HTTPS traffic going both ways. You can replay requests, fuzz inputs, scan for vulnerabilities. It's incredibly powerful for deep diving into an application. Z-Attack Proxy, or ZAP, is another great open source alternative too. For more automated scanning, you have tools like Wapiti. This is a black box scanner. It doesn't look at the source code. It just interacts with the live website like an attacker would. It throws common attack patterns, SQL injection strings, cross-site scripting payloads at the application and sees if anything sticks. It's good for finding low-hanging fruit quickly. And another useful one, especially in Windows environments, is Wfetch. It's a free Microsoft tool, a graphical utility. It lets you craft very specific HTTP requests to test how a web server responds. You can test different authentication methods, anonymous, basic, NTLM, Kerberos, check headers, see status codes. It's great for probing server configurations and authentication mechanisms, and using these tools effectively. That directly maps to those skills outcomes we talked about. Learning to use current network and security software and actually conduct penetration testing. Remember, the whole point of a course like BCIS 4342 is to teach you to employ the techniques and software normally used by hackers, then determine the best practices to secure those vulnerabilities. It's all about building those hands-on practical skills.
What an incredible overview. Seriously. We've gone from the basic building blocks, static versus dynamic, form scripts, databases, right through to dissecting major threats like SQL injection and flaws in business logic. And then we capped it off by looking at the actual toolkit ethical hackers use to find and help fix these problems. Browser tools, Burp Suite, Wapiti, Wfetch, powerful stuff.
And it's crucial to remember this knowledge isn't just, interesting trivia. It's absolutely fundamental for anyone going into MIS, CIS, IT, cybersecurity. Really mastering these concepts, understanding how things work and how they break, that's what positions you for leadership, for making a real impact. You become that invaluable asset, the person who can actually protect the organization's digital crown jewels.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. It's been hugely insightful. And to you listening, if this sparked something for you, if it helped clarify things, please do take a second to like, subscribe, maybe share this deep dive. It really helps us keep bringing you these kinds of insights that are just so critical for navigating your career path in tech today. So as you mull this over, think about this. What aspect of web server security do you find the most challenging, or maybe the most critical, in today's fast-moving digital world? Think like a hacker. Act like a guardian. Until next time, keep your systems and your ethics strong.